Well, hello and welcome everyone to the info session for Partners for Climate Action's new program, Building Decarbonization Grants. This meeting is being recorded and we will follow up with an email to today's participants with a link to the recording. I am Paige Ruane and you will be hearing shortly from my colleague Vanessa Bertozzi. We are co-directors of this Building Decarbonization Grant, or BDG for short. Here's our agenda for this session. We'll give a quick intro on why we are offering this grant and background on Partners for Climate Action, the nonprofit we work for. We'll give an overview of the grant and some details about the application. We will also highlight some additional aspects of the program, such as extra support we offer to grantees. This will take about 20 minutes because we want to devote the bulk of this hour together to the question and answer period. For the Q&A portion of this session, we will be joined by our partners, Eleanor Peck of the Hudson Valley Regional Council and Tara Donadio of the Capital District Regional Planning Commission, who will be able to answer your questions about available grants that you can use in combination with our grant if you need. Thank you, Eleanor and Tara, for joining today. We will be muting you during our presentation, and then we'll welcome your questions when we begin Q&A. We ask that you refrain from using the chat to ask questions until the very end if your questions have not been answered, and we will collect them and circle back to you with answers after this session. So, why did we create this grant program? The heating and cooling of buildings is the top contributor of greenhouse gas emissions in New York State, as some of you may know, and we want to help you change that. Our area has some of the oldest building stock in the country, and retrofitting these buildings needs to be done. And the state has programs and funds to help you do so. But those programs can be often hard to navigate and often require matching funds. So we have identified gaps in those processes that we can help with. We are launching the Building Decarbonization Grant to target these three stages. Municipalities and nonprofits can apply for grants between $5,000 and $100,000 for energy studies, engineering and design work, grant writing services, and for the actual implementation of decarbonization projects. We'll get into the details of that, but first, for those of you not familiar with Partners for Climate Action, I'll tell you a bit about our work. PCA is really dedicated to removing barriers to action. And we do this by providing funding and support to local communities who are taking action to address the climate crisis and improve the ecosystems of the Hudson Valley. We are fiscally sponsored by the New World Foundation in New York City. We raise funds primarily through private donors and foundations and act as a regranter. PCA staff runs additional programming such as our Local Champions program, ecological restoration grants, libraries of local, and even such things as PCA mixers, the Morning Coffee guest speaker series, and Get Outside group outings. Our efforts are focused on the local bioregion, which is defined by the Hudson River Estuary Watershed, which runs from Troy to New York City and the Catskills to Western Massachusetts. But to be clear, we are offering this grant to the following 6 counties, whether or not you are technically located in the Hudson River watershed. So Putnam, Dutchess, Ulster, Columbia, Greene, and Rensselaer. And in the future, we hope to extend our offerings to all the counties in the bioregion, but at the moment we are pacing ourselves. Underlying our work at PCA is the recognition that there is a unique opportunity here in New York State. We have the most progressive climate legislation in the country, even more ambitious than California's. The state is already gearing up to distribute hundreds of millions of dollars to communities to begin mitigating and adapting to climate change. And we see a lot of our work as assisting these communities to be ready to apply for and receive this funding. Now, Vanessa will give you an overview of the Building Decarbonization Grant.
Yeah, hello everybody. So now on to those grant details. Let's start with eligibility. Municipalities are eligible if they're a village, town, or a city. At this time, we're not accepting applications for this round for county entities. Nonprofits are also eligible to apply. They must have some sort of tax exempt status. So whether you have a fiscal sponsor, that works, or you have a 501c3 status or the like, that works. So think faith-based organizations, churches, synagogues, mosques, schools, libraries, and museums, those sorts of entities. And we also want to see applications from community organizations. So especially those that are working with disadvantaged communities, we really encourage them to apply. Our goal is for 40% of these funds to go to disadvantaged communities. And if you're not quite sure if where you are qualifies, we posted the link to the official New York State designated disadvantaged communities on the webpage for this grant, so you can check that out. Another important note: the applicant must be the owner of the building. Because of the way that our funding works, PCA is not able to give money towards building improvements that in the end are going to the owner of the building. And if that's a commercial landlord, that's not going to work for us. So that's why you have to have that some sort of tax exempt status. And Paige mentioned it, they'll mention it again. Here are the counties. If you're located in one of these counties, you're welcome to apply. Okay, so also as Paige mentioned, this opportunity was designed to step into some gaps, to fill some gaps that we've observed at these 3 stages. And there may be, depending on your situation, you may have a number of projects at varying stages. We would prefer if you would choose just one project and focus on that. However, you can apply if you have more than one project. Say you have more than one building in your portfolio, one is a stage A, one is a stage C. You're welcome to apply for those different projects, but they should be different applications. So the same applicant can submit more than one application. That's how we would prefer it if you're going to go ahead and do that. But we do encourage you to put your best foot forward in one project if possible. Because it is unlikely, just to be super transparent with you, it's unlikely that we would fund more than one application from a certain applicant. And that's simply because we want to try to share the wealth and really we want to fund a variety of different applicants and a variety of different stages. Okay, so let's start with stage A, energy studies, which is a grant for $5,000. This stage is specifically for schools and municipalities doing the Flex Tech program through NYSERDA. So good news, if you're a nonprofit organization, not a school, not a municipality, you can already go and get an energy study where I think your cost is just $100 to $500. So acknowledging that program, we're like, nonprofits, you go do you with that. It's called the Green Jobs Green New York program, and that's also linked on our webpage. But now for municipalities and schools who want to do the Flex Tech program through NYSERDA, that's great. But that is a 50% match for municipalities, and for schools, it's typically a 70% match. So that's where our grant can come in and help you fill the gap with your with the match that you would have to bring to the table. So you can match our grant along with those state funds. And energy studies, that's really best for folks who, have a building that you really haven't gotten started with in your decarbonization journey, and this is kind of your first step to understand what are the needs of the building, to have it looked at by a professional, and get some recommendations on what sort of interventions would be best to prioritize. Okay, so stage B, this is engineering, design, grant writing services. You can apply for between $5,000 to $15,000. And excuse me, this is a gap we often see for larger, more complex projects. Depending on your project, you may not need to do engineering and design work, but some do, and that can often be a stumbling block where even to go out and get the kind of funding you need for a big project, first you need to shell out some money for engineering and design. And and it's difficult to find funding for this stage. And that's exactly why PCA, why we designed this grant. So let's just say, for example, you've got a larger building, you have to totally revamp the HVAC system, and you think that the implementation for this new HVAC system is going to be hundreds of thousands of dollars. But first you need an engineering and design phase to even get a sense of what your actual estimated budget might be. And this is where our grant can help. And then let's say once you have that estimated budget and a proposal, you want to go and apply for a larger grant, then maybe you need some grant writing help to submit that application, to put together your materials. So if you want to apply for grant writing services for this stage B grant, you can. It's not required. The grant writing piece is optional. And it could be, you're working with an engineering firm and maybe they include grant writing services for an extra fee. That is fine. Or maybe you have an external grant writer that you like to work with, but you need to pay for those services. That's fine too, either way. You would just need to itemize those details in the budget that you submit to us. And yeah, if you don't need grant writing services at all, that's fine as well. So really the intention here is to help you get through that gap to a place where you're set up for success to actually move forward with a project, and you have a better sense of the budget and what the process will be. Okay, and then we have stage C, implementation. You can apply for between $5,000 to $100,000. And this is the actual meat of the stuff, right? This is doing the actual energy efficiency measure on your buildings, such as adding insulation or weatherization, air sealing, installing windows, or it could be adding new technology such as heat pumps, ground source geothermal, or solar. And we're open to smaller ticket items as well. So, Energy Star appliances or induction stoves. That's why, we included the low end here of $5,000. Even if you have a smaller project, we encourage you to apply. And as I said before, we do want to fund a range of projects. So a couple notes here. If you're installing new equipment, your application will be more likely to be funded if you're replacing some old fossil fuel infrastructure. If you are, say, nervous and you want to leave that oil burning furnace in place as a backup, that's okay. We're not going to require you to remove the old fossil fuel equipment. We encourage it, but we don't require it. As long as your application shows how you're going to replace that fossil fuel equipment with new electrified equipment, that's going to be more efficient. Another kind of edge case here, let's say you want to replace your electric baseboard heating with heat pumps that are way more efficient. You can apply for that, even though it's replacing electric with another more efficient electric. But again, just want to be transparent. That would be maybe less of a compelling application than, say, someone replacing, that direct fossil fuel burning equipment. So there are just a couple notes on stage C. Here's our timeline. Deadline is November 21st at 5 p.m. sharp. Don't leave it to the last minute. And especially those who are, municipal applicants, think about, getting on the agenda for your town board or what have you, if you need to get, the official stamp of approval to apply to this grant. So after the deadline, then our selection committee process kicks in and runs through December. We have an excellent group of experts and community members who will be reviewing all the applications with us. And then we hope to announce probably late January, early February who those grantees are. And then we have an onboarding stage with our fiscal sponsor, New World Foundation, that would take place probably late February or early March. So really the grants would be delivered to you starting in March 2024, which will be here before we know it. Okay, now we wanted to share some money details on the grant. This is not a reimbursement grant. After acceptance, you do onboarding with the New World Foundation where you provide some more financial documentation and they make sure everything's buttoned up. And then those grant funds are deposited into your account. And it's ready, set, go. We want action. And so we want to give you that money and you're off and running. We're giving you just 1 year as a grant period. So we want the funds to be deployed, the 1 year after you receive the funds. We understand if you're doing a pretty complex implementation project, sometimes construction timelines can slide. But just so long as you've commenced your implementation project within the 1 year, that should be okay. And then at the end of the 1 year grant period, there's a short report that you do where you fill out a narrative to explain how the funds were deployed. And we really want to make the management of this grant straightforward and as easy as possible for you. This is a good note for those of you. We do encourage you to apply for only the amount of money that you really need for the project. Don't just, say to yourself, oh, I'm going to just apply for the max and see if I get it. Because, I know the thinking might be, oh, might as well try. But, we have raised money for this grant and we continue to raise money. We're excited to see the response and we're continuing to raise more money, but our supplies are limited. So we will probably only fund just one really big, maybe 1 or 2 really big projects. So, and as I mentioned before, we're really looking for a variety of project sizes and from different types of applicants across our territory. So just helping you think strategically about how much to ask for. And yeah, again, we want action, Partners for Climate Action. We want to see these projects out in the world. So if your project will require additional funds beyond what you're asking for from us, you need to have that lined up. So we don't want to be in a situation where we have an exciting application, but they've asked for as much as they can from us, and then you've applied for a separate grant from some other entity, and you don't yet know if you've gotten that other grant. I don't think we would accept your application if that's the case. You need to have all that funding already secured and lined up. But the good news is that our grant money it can be paired with other sources such as, state or federal dollars or other private money that you have. So That's pretty important. And I know we know it's tricky when you're trying to cobble together different grant sources, but because of the short timeline of the grant, we really want you to be raring to go. And finally, here we would like to see some skin in the game. What do we mean by that? If you have some room in your budget to assign funds, um, as well as the funds you're asking for from us, that's great because it shows us that you're really committed to this project and you really want to make it happen. You could do some of your own fundraising in the lead up to your application, or you can also put in-kind labor or in-kind administration on your budget as well. We just want to see that your organization is invested in this opportunity. And yeah, and that said, we know that small municipalities and nonprofits, it can be a struggle to manage the additional work of a climate change project. This is in and above, above and beyond your day to day. We know that, and we know that it takes additional work to manage a grant. So as an option, you can request 10% of your funding to go towards administrative costs, including salaries. Again, just itemize that in your budget when you apply.
And another aspect of this is that we want to make an example of you and your good work. So we encourage you to use your finished project as a demonstration site for your community members. And we are building in support for you to do so. So you can request $2,000 for community engagement activities and materials showcasing your project, such as signage or any other creative idea you come up with. And we are partnering with NYSERDA's regional clean energy hubs, both the Mid-Hudson and Capital District hubs. They will be on hand to support grantees who make demonstration sites of their projects when they're finished. Those hubs, people at the hubs can support you with outreach to residents in your area to let them know about rebates and tax incentives and the practicalities of decarbonizing their homes and other buildings. So we'd love to see applications that detail how you'd use your project as a demonstration site or build in other community engagement in order to leverage your project to inspire residents in your area. We're really hoping to create exponential effect with these grants. So there will be a question on our application that asks, how would you build in community outreach? So application details. Oh, go ahead, Vanessa.
Yeah, so we wanted to offer you just a few more technical tips on the application itself to make sure that's super clear. It is the application itself is in a Google form that you can reach through our website. And it does have required questions in that Google form that are going to block you from advancing through to the next screen. And so we did create a Word document version and a PDF version of the application. So you can download that from the web page and you can see all the questions there, in one single document. And the idea is there, we want you to be able to sketch out and draft your responses. The thinking being that if you draft those responses in, say, the Word document, then you can just copy and paste those over to the application form when you're ready. But you do have to submit the Google form. And in addition to the Google form, there are attachments that you need to supply to us through an email. And you'll see on this next slide, we have just a screenshot of that Google form application. You'll see that if you have a Google account that you are signed into in that same web browser, I believe, it will sort of recognize you and you'll be able to have your work automatically saved by Google as you move through the form. You're not required to have a Google account. We set it up such that you don't have to be signed into Google in order to submit the form, but that's the way that it's going to be auto saving for you. So we do suggest that if you can sign into Google. And that way you can come back to it, and work on it later, continue to edit it. Okay, next slide. And here's a screenshot of the very end of that Google application form. And what you see here is sort of our prompts to remind you to email us these attachments to an email address. We wanted to accept those attachments through an email and not mucky muck around with the Google form with attachments. So, the attachments are things like your budget, which ideally is in Excel, or it could be, PDF, an official letter of support from your board, and any additional documents that support your proposal, such as if you've done a greenhouse gas emissions inventory or energy studies, anything relevant to your specific project. Okay. Page.
Yeah, thanks. So we are building in additional support for grantees we'd love to tell you about. So we have learned that there is strength in numbers and that there is just a great deal to be learned from each other as we share our experiences of doing this work. So we will be holding virtual office hours for grantees twice a month, and these are optional, where you can troubleshoot and bring your questions to us, to each other, and a variety of technical advisors who will join us. We will also host monthly virtual guest speakers on Zoom. And we will be inviting people to talk about successful and innovative decarbonization projects. And we will also host about 3 field trips to inspiring examples of decarbonization, decarbonized buildings. So now we will open it up to questions. We'd prefer if you could raise your hand instead of using the chat, and we will call on you. Remember to unmute yourself, please. And also, please feel free to put your questions in the chat towards the end if you feel they haven't been answered, and we'll circle back to you by email to answer those questions if we run out of time. So with that, we'd love to hear from you. I'll stop sharing. And does anyone have a question?
May I interject?
Yeah.
I don't have a hand raising function on my screen for some reason.
Sure.
Now, Vanessa did mention that we can apply for photovoltaics to offset versus just to augment or decarbonize, let's say, per building, correct?
Yes. Yes.
And
So,
if it's part of a more global project of renovation and photovoltaics, or let's say a part of that renovation, is that still something acceptable where we can dedicate part of that to a part of the project, even if the project starts, let's say, at a different timeline, maybe even before the grant is administered or bequeathed?
yeah. Your proposal could be part of a larger project that has already commenced. So let's say you've already started, you've already got the money together to redo your HVAC at Town Hall, and you want to apply to us to now put solar on the roof. That's fantastic. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Vanessa.
Sure. Let's go to Stacy Mantle.
Hi, everybody. Are you requiring an energy study? Because we're just about to start one. And if so, is a level 1+ acceptable?
Okay, yeah, great question. We're not requiring energy studies. So let's say you want to do a stage C project, and you just already know what you want to do. You can go ahead and apply for stage C without having done energy studies. I will say, though, that having gone through the step of doing your homework, doing some sort of engineering-minded evaluation or benchmarking or something to show that you really understand the needs of the building, that would be a stronger application, I guess we could say. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay, good. Great. How about Wendy Rudder? And maybe if folks could also say where they are, what town, or.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm in New Paltz in Ulster County. And I had a question. We're looking into this as a faith-based organization or synagogue, but we don't have 501c3 status. We have like EIN number. So would that preclude us from applying? We are
No,
nonprofit.
faith, as long as you have whatever the nonprofit code is for faith-based organization, that's fine. Yeah.
Good, because it's been a problem for other grants. So, okay, thank you.
Great. How about Michelle Gluck?
Hi, thanks, Vanessa, and thank you to Partners for Climate Action and the funders for this awesome opportunity for municipalities and others. Can you clarify, and I'm here in Kingston, New York, but repping like Ulster County. Can you clarify if counties are eligible applicants for, single buildings, county-owned buildings?
They are unfortunately not, Michelle, just villages and towns and nonprofits and cities.
Yeah, for this go round, we're trying to keep it, I don't know, I guess you could say we're trying to keep it for the little guys. Sorry, Michelle.
Okay, great. We'll still definitely be sharing the information widely. But, all right, thank you.
Great. How about Tom Conrad?
Tom Conrad from Marbletown. Also a clarification question. Fire districts, water districts, sewer districts, do they qualify?
Yeah, yes.
All right, thanks.
How about David? David?
Thank you. Yes, realistically, electrifying a building is a multi-year project. So what you are asking is for us to apply for the first year of a multiple year project and to prioritize what we could accomplish in that in 2024. Is that
That's
the way I'm
right.
hearing it?
For the energy studies and the engineering, design, and grant writing, we ask that you complete that within a year. But for the construction projects, we recognize that they often take multi-year projects. So as long as you've commenced the project within our grant year period, that would be fine.
Yeah, and also if it's a project that you're going to do multiple interventions, let's say you're going to add insulation as well as switching to heat pumps, you could apply for one of those aspects, for instance. That would be fine as well. If you have a larger goal to like completely revamp your building and completely decarbonize it, that would be a strong application. We would want to hear all about that, even if you were asking us for funds for just one smaller piece of that.
Cool. Thank you.
Kathy?
Hi, Kathy Nolan. I live in Mount Temper. I'm zooming in from there, but work with several nonprofits in Woodstock and Kingston in Ulster County. And I think you were addressing my question with that prior response. So one of the nonprofits that I work with has a goal to switch to heat pumps from baseboard electric. But part of that project is a major investment in windows and doors. It's quite a large building, a very old building, 125 years old. So I'm just wondering in terms of how to frame the project. And though we wouldn't be able to get to zero with just the windows and doors, and we would only be shifting to better use by going to heat pumps, could we have a viable project, because it would be big and be able to be a demonstration project in the middle of Kingston, that type of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. Energy efficiency is the first step, right? So yeah, we would love to see projects that are about creating a tighter envelope. That's a really important step. I think if we see applications where they want to put in their heat pumps, but they haven't paid any attention to the envelope, we might actually look at that with some trepidation.
Amy, go ahead.
Thank you so much. My name is Amy Hannes. I'm calling in from Mountain Laurel Waldorf School in New Paltz, New York. And we have a lovely, very old building that we actually have a NYSERDA funding. Someone funded us to do the NYSERDA study. So we're in the midst of stage A. We aren't going to be able to complete it until the winter because they need to do some drone flyover to look at the heat. So, the timing for us, like we will know our full implementation costs probably by January. We know some of them already. And so I'm wondering, can we apply for the stage C in anticipation of knowing that March, we're going to hit the ground running and start doing some of this work, but we won't have it fully fleshed out. And I know it includes heat pumps already and a whole bunch of other things to make the building, getting rid of the oil in the basement. So I'm just looking, for some advice on what to include in the application that's due November 21st before we'll have the full breadth of it.
Ooh, Amy, a good tricky question. Yeah, I think as you get closer, if you feel like you have a handle of like what your budget would be for the project, I would say go for it. We are encouraging folks who have done those energy studies to submit those along with their applications. So maybe if it's in draft form or something like that, that could work. I don't know. What do you think, Paige? I hadn't thought of this one.
Yeah, I agree. If you kind of have a sense of the ballpark, then let us know. We can also talk with you, have a call with you as in the lead up, and see where you're at and kind of talk it through the complexities.
Well, thank you guys so much. And also I just want to say this is an awesome grant and I'm psyched to see so many organizations applying for it.
Yes. Joseph, go ahead.
Thanks. Joseph Montori from Sustainable Putnam in Putnam County. I work with a nonprofit. It's a food rescue organization that does not own their own building, but they do a lot of cooking. And I'm wondering if they could apply for, say, an induction stove, which you mentioned as an example.
Do you know who the owner of the building is, Joe?
They're actually, well, no, I don't. In short, no.
Okay. I think ideally, say if the owner of the building is, say, a church, that church could apply on behalf and show that they're collaborating with this nonprofit that rents from them. That would be a very strong application.
Okay.
I think if it's equipment, if something didn't work out or the nonprofit food organization had to, say, move locations, would they take that induction stove with them? Are they the owner of that induction stove? I think that's the rub there. Like we would need it to not at the end of the day remain the property of a commercial landlord.
That makes sense. Yeah. Thank you.
Kim, go ahead.
Hi, name is Kim Mayer. Thank you, Vanessa and Paige. This is a wonderful grant, a great opportunity for communities. I'm also a member of that faith-based organization interested in this grant. And I had a question because we did do one of those Green Jobs, Green New York energy audits in 2021, but at that time they were not including information about solar and geothermal and heat pumps. So we have a lot of information on energy reduction in terms of insulation, windows, things like that. So I guess the question is I'm curious about what you think about like energy creation in terms of like solar and geothermal. Is that decarbonization as much, like, I'm not sure how you would view. I know that we can decarbonize and reduce our energy usage by 20% by putting in insulation. At the moment, I'm not sure of what geothermal would do because I don't have the energy study. So I'm just curious about your group's view on that, because we're kind of a strange place.
Yeah, that's a bit tricky. I think if you have that energy study and it's pointing towards the need for more insulation or other ways to seal up your envelope and become more efficient, I think that that's maybe the priority for your project, right? And I don't know how much that would cost, but if you wanted to say, what's the heating source right now? Is it fuel oil burning or?
It's electric oil.
Oh, electric, you said.
And oil.
And oil.
And oil, yeah. If you wanted to have a contractor come in and say, give you a quote for what it would cost to get rid of the oil and replace it with something else, that could be included as well. So again, like the energy study is great to have because it shows us that you're committed, you're thinking about this, you've done your homework, but it's not absolutely necessary if you have some other source of information that's pointing you towards a certain technology or intervention.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Kathleen Gray has been patiently holding her actual hand up. Go ahead, Kathleen. Oh, I think you're on mute. We can't hear you, Kathleen.
Kathleen, we can't hear you. It looks like you're unmuted, but we still can't hear you, Kathleen. Maybe if you want to type in your question and we'll make sure we get to it. I also see in the chat as a follow-up to Kim's question, Eleanor Peck from HVRC says that these Green Jobs, Green New York level 1+ audits now do cover heat pumps. Not sure about solar.
Yep, that is my understanding. They're the same studies as if a municipality here has gotten a CEC clean energy study. They're the same ones, and they are now promoting heat pumps in those studies.
Also, Jane Cottrell doesn't have a hand raise option on Zoom. So Jane, did you have a question? Jane still with us? Okay, maybe not. All right, we'll go to Margaret, please. What's your question?
Hi, so Catskill has a village of Catskill is a disadvantaged community with a very difficult budget situation. I think the ideal project for us would be to, first of all, do an energy audit for the municipal building that has the village hall and the police station in it, which we know is a heavy user of greenhouse, a heavy emitter of greenhouse gases. I guess the proper thing to do would be to apply for a Flex Tech grant first and then apply for a PCA grant to balance out whatever we need for the whatever the Flex Tech grant doesn't provide. I'm just a little concerned about this timeline because we wouldn't apply for a Flex Tech grant because of the 50% match requirement if there weren't the PCA grant also available that could potentially pay for 100% of our energy audit. So we haven't yet applied for a Flex Tech grant.
Right. Margaret, what I would suggest, since you're working with your municipality, would be to do a resolution that says that the Village of Catskill will move forward with the Flex Tech program if and when they receive help with the matching funds from Partners for Climate Action or something like that.
Okay.
So that way your elected officials know that they're not on the hook or that they have an out.
Okay.
Okay. How about Andrea Smythe?
Hi, thank you. I'm joining on behalf of a nonprofit cultural center in Kingston, and we are building a new facility. But what if we wanted to, for example, make sure that the rooftop garden and sustainable kitchen were outfitted with, you know, we want to do a net zero building, but we have to fund all the component parts to be able to do that. It's not a retrofit, it's actually new construction. Is that an eligible purpose?
Andrea, I'm sorry, we're gonna have to say no. We're really focusing on retrofits for this round. But that sounds like an amazing project. I hope you stay in touch.
Go ahead, Chow.
Oh, thanks. So I'm thinking of switching from propane to heat pumps in a municipal building. And right now I can estimate a budget from a preliminary engineer, but I need engineering drawings as well as the implementation part. So the question is, should I apply for 2 separate applications for stage B and stage C, or should I put the drawings as part of the implementation?
Ooh.
Because it would be 2 separate grants.
Right, it's 2 different stages, right?
Right.
I think we would have you probably apply those in 2 different applications.
Okay.
What do you think, Paige? Maybe we could discuss this one. It's a little tricky.
Yeah, we can get back to you on that, Chow. So you're saying that you think you will quickly be able to turn around and do the implementation project once you're just waiting for the drawings, you're saying?
We're going to have a rough estimate at the beginning, but in order to get an accurate estimate for the implementation, I would need to do stage B, but it's all the same project.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think first priority is stage B, to get your drawings, your engineering, to really understand your budget, right?
And likewise, we would not do C if we couldn't get the money for it.
Right.
So that would be some kind of a resolution saying, yes, we would move forward with this if and when we had money for the implementation.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
How about Susan?
Hi, everybody. Thanks, Vanessa. So most of you on here know me as the Climate Smart Task Force Chair for the town of Poughkeepsie. But I have another hat that I wear, which is that I am very involved in Vassar Temple in the city of Poughkeepsie. I am the immediate past president and financial manager. So I am looking at these grants for both of my hats. And I specifically wanted to respond to Wendy's question. I went in the chat, but I don't know if you saw it, Wendy. We had this same exact problem where we did not have our official 501c3. We are celebrating our 175th anniversary, and no one ever bothered to get the letter in all these years from the IRS. And so it took us several months to get that done. But in the meantime, we were able to provide substitute documentation because legally we are 501c3 as a religious organization. And we had documentation that we used because we used it to get a PPP loan, and it was accepted by the government for that. So I would be very happy to share the language that we use to Wendy or any other faith-based organization that needs assistance with that kind of documentation. Vanessa and Eleanor, Liz, they all have my email. I would be very happy to be in contact with anyone who needs that kind of assistance to share how we manage that. I'll be looking at this for the temple. You're welcome. We are in the process of doing our sanctuary windows, which were these very old single pane drafty windows. Huge amount of fundraising, getting that done, putting in what's called a Caldwell system, which is efficient, but we have lots more stuff that we'd like to do on our building. So I am really excited to look at this for us, and you will be hearing from me from the temple.
Thanks.
Okay, but please feel free to share my email address with, or I can just put it in the chat if that's
put it in the chat.
If anyone wants it for that purpose. Okay.
Okay, and we'll send it in the follow-up email as well.
Okay.
So I see Kathleen Gray's question in the chat. Her question is, we have an energy study, but it does not recommend replacing 3 gas-fired furnaces in our senior center. Could we apply to replace the gas-fired furnaces with heat pumps? Ooh, good question. Because your energy study person thought that keeping fossil fuel infrastructure was worth it if the costs were maybe less. I don't know, Tara, you have a thought on this?
Yeah, I was just gonna say I've seen that happen before with studies, and it really ends up being that if it's a natural gas, they don't recommend it if the cost savings doesn't always work out in favor of the entity. So that's likely why they didn't. But you know, in this case, you know, the heat pumps are, of course, are going to save emissions. So I think, you know, it's a good path for them to probably go down.
Yeah, so I guess the priority for us is to get off fossil fuels, and with some energy studies, the priority of the contracted specialist may have been to provide you with cost savings. So you would be eligible to apply, and you would just explain that in your application. Ralph?
Thanks. Ralph Moranti. I'm here in Woodstock and in Phoenicia, faith-based organization. And in Woodstock, we have a school, non-religious, but a universal pre-K. So I'm a little on the fence as far as the energy study goes and trying to understand whether that's something we should do with NYSERDA or the combination that the other person talked about, getting the secondary grant from you folks. So.
Oh, right, because if you're a pre-K, do you count as a school, right? Through NYSERDA's P through 12 program. Is that what you're saying?
Right. So we have a nursery school and a universal pre-K.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I would recommend reaching out to a representative from NYSERDA's P12 program to really understand what you qualify for, because my understanding is they could only require a 30% match. And I think if you're in a disadvantaged community, they would even match you with more funds. So,
I would love that, but all my churches in the Ontario School District are not in your grid on that wonderful map of yours.
Oh, okay.
And especially Woodstock. But
yeah.
So then would the PCA grant help with that 30% or whatever?
Yes.
Or Right, and that would be the place to start, it sounds like. All
Yeah.
right, I really appreciate your help the other day and all of this work. Thank you.
Sure. How about Melanie Kraus?
Hi, yes, thank you. Can you just clarify a little bit about the grant writing part? And I apologize if you already did that. But when you say grant writing, is that for it would not be part of the grant writing for this application, but more about the project, correct?
Correct. So the thinking is if you're kind of stuck in this place where you just need some money and some help with grant writing to go for a larger, some other grant besides the PCA grant. That's what we could help you with, is paying a grant writer to help you with that.
Okay, thank you for clarifying.
Yeah, no, it's a little confusing. How about Stephen Ware?
I'm representing Gardner, New York, and I got a question. We're meeting tonight, and if we get the grant, more than likely as a municipality, we're going to have to do competitive bidding because we're thinking of things like solar paneling, town hall or another building. So my concern is if we get the grant and we're in the process of competitive bidding, is still that going to impact upon the award of the grant and this whole concern about getting it done in a year, at least commencing in a year?
Yeah, I mean, that's okay. So for a municipality, if you need to go through a competitive bid,
You may, I'm not
yeah,
sure.
you may. For like solar, I think you would. I think you would. So you could do that now. And I don't know, maybe check with your town or village clerk to make sure you could put in the bid documents. We will be selecting, the lowest bidder that fits our criteria, whatever. And we would be moving forward on this project should we get the grant funds that we need. So make it sort of contingent on doing the project if you're not going to do it unless you get a grant. You could do it that way. That way you get that bid process done now and out of the way. Or you wait to hear if you get the grant from us, you would be applying, I guess, with an estimation of how much those bid quotes would come in at. And then
we have a pretty good figure of that already.
Yeah, you'd have to do that bid process. We'd hope that you'd be ready to go if we were giving you the grant.
Okay.
And, getting a bid for solar shouldn't take a year. Let's put it that way.
Oh, no. We can get the bids probably in a month or two.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay. Stacy, you have a question?
Yeah, hi again. I'm from Armenia, by the way. I just wanted to know if you're requiring stage B, like an engineer and design study before implementation, because right now we are having HVAC engineers come in and give us estimates on heat pumps and what's required, and electricians to come and see what they can do. So are you requiring that, or can we go right to the HVAC quotes?
Yeah, you don't have to do an engineering and design study. It's just if you feel that you need one, but if it works to just talk to the contractors, that's totally fine if you want to apply for stage C first.
Thank you.
Yeah, it really depends on the building and on the complexity of the project.
Okay, thank you.
Matthew Mercier. Hi.
Hi. Matt Mercier, Chair of the Climate Smart Committee in Germantown. So I just want to clarify, I think you said this earlier, you're not requiring that we show that we'll be able to literally reduce our, say, propane use. I mean, we want to ideally perhaps use it for a solar project, but I'm not sure if the town will reduce its propane use in that same year. Is that, so a stronger application would be if we can show we would reduce that use, that propane use?
I think if you are generating clean energy, I think that's a really good use of this grant money. We're not saying that first you need to remove all fossil fuels before, say, putting in something like solar. So does that answer your question? I think it's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, I mean, I just, yeah, because I'm, as you can probably guess, you know, working with municipalities and getting our town board to agree to use strictly solar is probably a non-starter. So having, you know, solar,
Right.
but
Yeah.
getting a solar array first.
Sure. I guess you could say that with this Building Decarbonization Grant, the name is aspirational. We're not completists.
Right.
If you had an application where you were doing a complete decarbonization of your building, that would be fabulous, but not required.
Okay, great. Just clarify. That's what I thought, but just thank you. All right.
How about Margaret?
Hi, thank you so much. I'm Margaret King, calling in for Scenic Hudson. And I was just curious to know whether you have a roster of other funding programs that also support this type of work, whether it's public or private.
Actually, that's a really great question. And I wanted to just segue to introducing Tara and Eleanor, who are on this call. They are our partners from HVRC with Eleanor and Tara at the Capital District Regional Planning Commission. And they have a lot of expertise when it comes to grants and funding sources for this type of work. And we would also refer you to the Energy Hub in your area. Paige and I are I wouldn't call us the experts on it. But we've tried on our webpage to link out to those other opportunities that dovetail nicely. I hope that helps. Maybe just one more question because it looks like we're at time. Elena?
Yes, hi, Elena Mosley. I am with Operation Unite New York. We're a small not-for-profit in Hudson, New York, and our building was a home built in the 1950s. And I was attracted to this grant because we need to replace the windows. There are no storm windows, on the whole first floor, and the ones on the second are probably as old as who knows when they were put in. But so I was looking for energy efficiency. We'll definitely do the NYSERDA an energy assessment for it. One of the things also is included with the windows are the doors in terms of, the energy, because we definitely can feel everything in the winter coming through. But the back door needs to be, I don't think it's going to pass as far as for wheelchair accessibility. And that's another thing that we're working on for that. But if we have to replace it, that also needs to be done efficiently. Is that something that should be connected to this grant application along with the windows?
I think that, and Paige definitely chime in here, but I think that if, oftentimes with construction projects, everything is connected. So before you know it, it's more. But I think that coming up with a climate-friendly solution for your building that also improves the ADA accessibility is like really a beautiful thing. So I would encourage you to apply.
Yeah, I agree. I think that sounds great.
Great, thank you.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for coming. We will be posting this recording on the webpage for this grant, and stay tuned. we may hold another session. You know, you can also email us at decarb@climateactionhv.org. We're taking questions there as well. And if we're still getting a lot of questions, who knows, maybe we'll host another info session sometime in October.